So now we've come to the point now where we can analyze arguments that involve categorical propositions. This is what we've sort of been building up to for the past couple weeks. And so now we're at the point now where we can sort of discuss how we're going to go about doing that. Now, when we're talking about arguments that involve categorical statements, we are talking about categorical syllogisms. Syllogisms are just simply put arguments that involve two premises and a conclusion. Categorical syllogisms obviously involve the use of categorical propositions within each of those statements, or in those syllogisms, I should say. Now, last week we talked about how to translate categorical statements into the appropriate standard form, and as we're going to see here in this video and in the next video, it's really, really important to get down how to translate into standard form, because in order to do the categorical analysis that we need, or the argumentative analysis on categorical syllogisms that we need to do, we have to make sure that it's in the appropriate form, because that's what's really going to help us understand how things work here. Now, when we're to begin the discussion of these syllogisms, there's a few things that we should, certain terms we need to clarify here. So within each syllogism, there is always a major, a minor, and a middle term. So the major term is always going to be the predicate of the conclusion. So if we're looking at this particular argument here, all mammals are animals that nurse their young, all cats are mammals, therefore all cats are animals that nurse their young, then here we would say then that the predicate, the major term in this case, if we're looking at the conclusion, which we need to look at, would be the phrase animals that, or the class of animals that nurse their young. So this is our major term here, the predicate. Now, the minor term here, and this is kind of backwards from the way we might think, so it's important to try to keep these terms straight. The minor term is the subject of the conclusion. So in this case here, it is going to be cats. Okay. So that sort of analyzes those terms. The final term, the middle term, is the term that is found in both premises but is not found in the conclusion. The middle term is basically the middle ground between the subject and the predicate. So if we're looking back up here on the premises, we can see here that the middle term, the term that is contained in the premises but not in the conclusion, is mammals. Okay. Right. And so again, for further sort of setting out terminology here, the proposition that contains the major term, the predicate term, is going to be referred to as the major premise here. In this case, it would be this first one, because here we have it here, so that's our major. So this here is our major premise. And down here, the minor is the minor premise. The minor premise is, of course, the one that contains the minor term. So we have cats right here. Now, when it comes to setting up categorical syllogisms, there's actually a set way you need to do it. So the way that you have to do this is in the following way. First of all, every single one of your propositions needs to be in standard form, meaning that you need to have the quantifier, you need to have a very clear subject and a very clear predicate in which there are actual nouns or pronouns being used. You can't have, say, all cats are brown. You would need to say, for instance, all cats are brown animals, or something like that. And you have the copula, the form of to be. Okay, so you need to have these in place in order to have your categorical syllogism set up appropriately. The other thing to keep in mind here is that the major premise has to come first here. And you're going to think, why is this a necessary thing? Well, in the next video, we're going to talk about how you're going to need to have the major premise first and the minor premise second in order to accurately read a chart to determine whether a syllogism is valid or invalid. So it's really important to make sure that you have the major premise first here, which we do. The other thing to keep in mind is that every term needs to be used in the same way. There can't be some sort of difference in meaning. So you can't go from like all cats to saying somewhere else in the syllogism big cats or house cats. It has to be cats, okay? So you need to use the term in the same exact way throughout. So the two occurrences, so that's the idea that the two occurrences of each of these terms needs to be identical here. The middle term, the minor term, and the major term all need to be the same exact class, basically. So another point the last point to say is that each term needs to be used throughout the syllogism. Okay. So we'll talk about how it's distributed, but that's the basic idea here, is that they need to be, somehow or another connected throughout the syllogism here.